And I don't really think people at all recognize what's happening. Friday night at the crypto ball, he launches the Trumpcoin. There's no way that you ever could have imagined that the Secretary of the Treasury, 2 days before the inauguration, is at a ball when they launch a shitcoin. This is what happened, all right? So I would anticipate on Monday or Tuesday that the repeal of SAB 121 will be removed, and U.S. banks next week will legally be able to hold Bitcoin. This is really important. It's more important than the strategic stockpile with the strategic reserve, because when banks can hold Bitcoin on behalf of customers, it now fully integrates Bitcoin into the United States financial system. I think what's even more interesting that's happened in the United States is state pension funds are already buying Bitcoin. Like Wisconsin, they've got like $150 million. And that was like 0.1% of the pension fund for the state employees.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
The Keystone Wallet is the wallet that you want to be using to keep your crypto safe. Whether you are a Bitcoin maxi or an altcoin lover, it is perfect for you. Easy to use, 3 secure elements, and integrates easily with MetaMask, Kepler, and dozens of other extension wallets. Get one now to keep your crypto safe and secure. Go to bit.ly/CryptoRichKeystone. Hi everybody, I am joined by Chris Terry from BitSeeker, and we are going to be talking about a particular crypto phenomenon. Just a quick note about this video. Chris Terry and I recorded this on Sunday, the 19th of January, about 6 hours before Melania Trump launched her meme coin, Melania. Just bear that in mind when you listen to our debate. Hey Chris, thank you so much for making yourself available.
Rich, good to see you again.
Yeah, and you. Thank you. It's always enjoyed talking to you. And do you want to say you're with BitSeeker Consulting? What are they? Who are they? Why are you?
Yeah, BitSeeker is a consulting company. We focus on blockchain and particularly now Bitcoin solutions, layer 2 solutions, and trying to use Bitcoin rather than just number go up, extending some of the stuff we've done in the past with Ethereum and EVMs and all that, and really looking at using Bitcoin now as an underlying layer for business and adding functionality to Bitcoin other than just what it does for people's wallets, so to speak. We believe a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of development going forward, and when you talk about security and the securest network in the world, it's Bitcoin. And so we think that there's going to be, over time, I think you're going to see a lot of real world assets, right, anchored to Bitcoin. And there's a lot of work in the layer 2 space. We're not a layer 2 developer, but we look at building solutions on layer 2. We did some Lightning solution stuff, a prototype a while back, and that kind of thing. So that's the place that that's where we play.
Great. And I'll have your links in the description below. And you're an X. What's your X?
It's Chris J. Terry.
Chris J. Terry. Great. Okay, and I shall link to that as well. Okay. Well, you reached out to me because we're recording this on Sunday, the 19th of January at 1500
What a day. What a day. The day before the big event.
Yes. So 19th of January, 1500 hours in the UK, 10 a.m. where you are on the East Coast. Tomorrow, Monday, which is probably when this video will go out, something's happening, but I'm not sure where exactly it's happening.
Something, yes.
Yes, something's happening, which hopefully is going to be consequential for the world in a good way. But it's been consequential for crypto. Or something's happened. Do you want to say what it is, Chris?
Yeah. What mixed feelings, right? It's funny. I put out a tweet on this. I could probably find it if you dig into my feed. I put it out yesterday morning, with the Trumpcoin, obviously. So there's a lot going on, obviously, with the Trump administration and Bitcoin and cryptocurrency for the United States. To say there's a sea change from the Biden and the Democrats is an understatement. I don't really think people at all recognize what's happening. And I'm going to tailor back into the Trumpcoin thing here. Even as a Bitcoiner, and I was into the shit coins a while back, and then I got wiped out, like everybody, through that, and then really kind of focused more on Bitcoin completely the last couple of years. Hoping and dreaming that we'd have an administration in the United States and a policy that embraced this new technology. And Trump got elected, and that was great. Obviously, what he said sounded good, but like anybody else, recognizing that he's a politician, often wondering, is he really going to deliver on what he says? And then Saturday night or Friday night, I guess, right? Today's Sunday. Friday night at the crypto ball, he launches the Trumpcoin. I got home from a project I was working on very late Friday night, and Trumpcoin was at about, I think, about $9. I said to myself, well, there we go. Probably is going to be more than that in the morning. Called a buddy of mine, woke up Saturday morning, it was at 20. He said it's going to go to 100. I said, yeah, maybe. Went and got a cup of coffee. Came back to my desk after I brewed a coffee. An hour later, it was at 30. Woke up this morning, it was at 70. And it really gives you mixed feelings, right? But I think this is the important takeaway.
Before we get into that, let me just
Yeah.
say a little bit. So it was launched on
Friday night.
yeah, and it listed on CoinGecko at 3:40 a.m. UK time. And when it was launched on SolScan, so it's a meme coin on the Solana blockchain,
Right.
its opening price was 18.24 cents.
Yes.
Yeah, 18.24 cents. And today, right now, at the time of recording, it's about $59. It was as high as $73.
Correct.
And when I woke up at 8:40. Well, no, I bought some about 8:30 yesterday morning, Saturday morning, for about $17, and I bought some more later on. And it's just insane. And what's happened with looking on CoinGecko, Bitcoin's gone up a little bit, Solana's gone up quite a bit, and just about everything else is red. All the other altcoins are red because people are selling their altcoins.
Everybody's is playing into the trade, so they're selling their altcoins.
Yeah.
To play the trade. I mean, I get that.
Yeah. So that's what's happening. So go on, what's your take on it?
So my take on it is this. Obviously, it's just the meme coin, and that's fine. People make money with meme coins. Like I said, I looked at buying it Friday night at like $9, and I didn't do it. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. But I'm a long-term investor and believer in Bitcoin as a store of value. Something you buy for decades, not for days or weeks. But my point being with this, and the most important takeaway that I want to make, no matter how you feel about it, because quite honestly, I feel about it. I'm not really into meme coins or altcoins so much. And as an American, I'm quite embarrassed, to be honest with you. The fact that our president shills a coin, right before in his presidency getting inaugurated. I mean, I think it's quite honestly, I think it's grotesque. I really do. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But the flip side is this, and this is the most important point for Bitcoiners that feel like I do or others. If there was any doubt that Trump is not all in on crypto, and that all the things he said on the campaign and everything he promised with all these things that he was going to do, the Trump organization, through his family and several of the holding companies, they own 80% of that coin. So they went Friday night and they launched the thing. It's got $1 billion. So it went to $70 a share. That's $56 billion for the Trump family in about 24 hours. So if there was any doubt in your mind that Trump is not pro-crypto, that he's not going to be good for Bitcoin, that he's not going to really push this thing forward, that eliminated all doubts in my mind. So what it does, I'm not so sure. I hope people make some money on the trade. Good for you. But what it did for me was it cemented the fact that he's in crypto. It's not bullshit. He's got 56 billion reasons, or whatever the market cap at 80% is this morning, to be there. And so that's my takeaway. I don't like it. I don't think the president should be shilling coins. But for me, it cemented the fact that he is indeed going to follow through with everything he said, and that he will become the crypto president and the Bitcoin president. And overall, it is fantastic and a validation of what he said. He's in. They're in. The Trump family's in. No doubt.
Okay, just something on that I want to come back with is about he's not going to rug pull. He's not going to rug pull.
No.
Don't imagine. He's not going to rug pull, right? And he's going to sustain the price of it. One, because him and his family benefit and his companies benefit, but also it's great for his reputation and the regard that people have for him, those that do. And it's great for, like you said, it's great for crypto. It's really, really great for crypto. So I think in the long term, potentially Trumpcoin, it could be, is going to stay in the way that Dogecoin, the granddaddy of all the meme coins, is, it's one of the major blue chip cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I guess, right? I mean, I guess it's again, you could argue maybe for Doge that maybe Musk is going to use it for a payment integration or something along those lines. The Trump thing's a meme coin. It's great for Solana, obviously. I don't hold a lot of Solana. It's, and then there's a lot of stuff on crypto Twitter talking about the fact that Solana and David Sachs, which is the crypto czar for Trump, is an investor in the Solana network and everything else. And so there's a lot of threads and conspiracy theory about that. But it's certainly good for Solana. I think Solana is a great network. If they can keep it running It's a good network for functionality and those things. And I don't think it's a rug pull for the Trump coin. I think it's going to be fine. So, it's okay. Like I said, net, it's a positive for the industry, and I hope people make money with it, and he's not going to rug pull it. But it's a meme coin, right? There's no other functionality other than just number go up, and that is what it is. But for me, more importantly, is the commitment to the crypto industry is now validated without any question, and that is super important. And I think people are overlooking that.
Yeah, but given that it's on Solana, and unlike other like Ethereum-based meme coins like Shiba Inu, it's Solana, like Trump coin, like Dogecoin, is really fast and really cheap to transact. It may, I think it's possible and likely there will be more and more infrastructure as a possible payment mechanism for Trump coin. I didn't know about David Sachs and Solana and Trump. That's interesting. And the other thing that I'm wondering about is in the UK, what would happen if there was a Keir Stalin meme coin that he were to launch? I don't think anybody would buy it.
Nobody buy it.
Nobody would buy it, right? No. Now, if there was a Putin meme coin in Russia, I think many people would buy that. I don't know what would happen with a Zelensky coin, but it's a way of people showing their appreciation or not for particular political leaders. If there was an Ursula von der Leyen meme coin, who would buy that?
Well, recognize that if you look into the contracts, the Liberty, I think it's the Liberty, I forget the legal name of the corporation. It's Liberty Media, I think is it. They put $40 million of liquidity behind it in the smart contract when it launched. 40 million. So when they launched it, they stuffed that ballot box, so to speak, with a lot of money to get the liquidity for that thing to get off the ground. And then they announced the contract address at the crypto ball. So let's talk about the crypto ball that happened on Friday night. Are you aware of that? Do you know what that was?
I know that he invited lots and lots of American crypto projects and companies.
Right. Well, at the crypto ball was Scott Bassett, our new Secretary of the Treasury. Right. At the crypto ball was Ron Johnson, the Speaker of the House. At the crypto ball was Cynthia Lummis.
Sorry, you mean Michael Johnson? Michael Johnson.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I keep on getting these alerts from this one friend of mine. I'm sorry I can't silence them on. I thought I had it disconnected. I apologize for that. But yeah. So and then of course there was a whole slew of everybody else that was there. It wasn't just David Sachs who put the thing on. By the way, it was his idea. There's a podcast called the All In Podcast, the All In Podcasts, and David Sachs with a bunch of other tech guys out of Silicon Valley put this thing on. A couple conservatives, a couple liberals, somewhat balanced. They talk about all sorts of stuff. If you don't know who David Sachs is, but he is now running the Trump's administration. He's the point man for crypto in the industry, and so it wasn't just a bunch of crypto. And Kraken was there; they were official supporter of it. Snoop Dogg was there doing the music. They're doing all these white guys. And all these old politicians, and Snoop Dogg's playing rap. I mean, and it was wild, the outtakes. You could see it all on Twitter. But the point being is Washington was there. It just wasn't crypto. Washington. And he released the contract at the crypto ball. He said, "Here's the address. Go for it." And that got released there. So anybody who's at the ball, they got the contract address. Then it spread like wildfire. Like I said, I think they released it sometime early evening. I checked the computer about midnight when it was about $9. I think it was $9.54 when I looked at it when I got a price quote on it. But anyway, so this blending of Washington and crypto, again, it's more than just, hey, crypto's great, we're on board with you guys, we're going to take care of you. It is the Secretary of the Treasury was there. This is a Bitcoiner and as an American. When I voted for Trump earlier because of his policies with regards to free speech and libertarian values and less government and all the things that I kind of like on the political side, and hoping that he would reverse what happened from the Democrats in the United States, Elizabeth Warren, Biden, Gary Gensler, I thought it'd be good, but you couldn't dream this shit up if you tried. There's no way that you ever could have imagined that the Secretary of the Treasury, 2 days before the inauguration, is at a ball when they launch a shitcoin. This is what happened, all right? I don't think people get it.
I was going to say Trump is the Bitcoin president, but perhaps he's the shitcoin president.
For sure, right? And a couple more things. Let me tell this guy to quit. This is driving me nuts. Hold on a second. Sorry, you have to cut this out, Rich.
Sure, just keep silent.
Okay. Anyway, now we'll get back to that. Sorry, I apologize. I think there's a couple really important things with regards to the Trump administration that most people don't understand or trying to put it in perspective. Everybody is talking about the Bitcoin strategic reserve, right?
Mhm.
A couple points of interest. Trump never said strategic Bitcoin reserve. He said in Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, a strategic stockpile. And there's a difference. People are using these terms interchangeably. Oh, it's reserve, stockpile, blah, blah, blah. It's completely different, right? A stockpile can be established by executive order. A reserve, which requires spending, has to be passed by Congress. In the United States, we have three parts of government. We have the legislative branch, which is in charge of taxation and money and spending and laws, right? We have the judicial branch that checks the laws that are passed by Congress to make sure they're constitutional. That's their job. If they pass a law that goes against the Constitution, the Supreme Court will say, we're sorry, that law is illegal. You can't make that because the Constitution is the DNA for all our laws. And and this is very high level stuff, what they're supposed to do. And the executive branch is responsible for executing the laws passed by Congress. They pass a law that says, hey, everybody's got to eat bananas. And they pass the law. But they don't say how many bananas you have to eat, when you have to eat the bananas, where you get the bananas. That is in charge of the agencies which fall under the executive branch, which is the office of the presidency, to make sure everybody eats their bananas according to the law. But they don't always define this, right? And so now we're getting to some American nuance of politics, but these are very important things to understand. So Trump can go ahead and start a strategic stockpile by executive order with regards to the Bitcoin that the United States has on hand. He can say, hey, that falls under the U.S. Marshal Service. It's part of the executive office, blah, blah, blah. Don't spend our Bitcoin. He could probably do that with a piece of paper and a pen. But he cannot go out and start buying Bitcoin. He cannot spend money to buy Bitcoin. That requires an act of Congress. Now recognize that only 3 to 4% of all legislation that gets introduced into our legislative branch of government ever passes. They never pass any laws. They talk about it 95% of the time, but it never passes. It never passes. So this idea that we're going to have this wonderful Bitcoin reserve and they're going to start buying Bitcoin, it sounds great. Probably not going to happen. Certainly not anytime soon. Now, what does that mean? Let's talk about the stockpile. Let's talk about a couple other things that are super important and what's going to happen tomorrow on day one, right? And this is really important for Bitcoin and really important for the industry. And I don't think a lot of people are focusing on this. Now, I know it's a little long-winded, but it's important for people to understand. So what happened was that through the Democrats and Gary Gensler and the SEC, they had decided that U.S. banks are allowed to hold Bitcoin. And since they're part of the executive office and they are responsible for executing laws, they have a great, not as authority, they have a broad dictate on how they do that, right? So Gensler said, whatever, somehow, Bitcoin is not allowed for banks to have it. Yeah, they could actually have it, but literally, they'd have to have a dollar for every Bitcoin that people had. It'd be like if you own Coca-Cola stock and you bought $100 of it, your bank would have to go out and get $100 in cash to offset your Coca-Cola stock. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, banks don't do that, and brokerage houses don't do that. They let you buy the Coca-Cola stock, you're on your own. But Gensler and the Democrats, as a way to kind of hurt the industry, said banks can't hold Bitcoin unless you have a one-for-one offset. Well, banks are not going to turn around and put money against their customers' deposits, right? So they wrote this rule. It was called SAB 121, Staff Accounting Bulletin 121. Last year, the United States Congress and the Senate overrode this dictate from the executive branch, from Gary Gensler, and they actually passed it. It was the first crypto law ever passed in the United States in history, was the repeal of the executive dictate SAB 121. It got to Biden's desk, and he vetoed it on a Friday night after the close of business hours, and basically said, I don't care what law you guys pass, even though you're in charge of it, I'm going to veto your law. Congress and then the Senate can override the president's veto again, but they needed enough votes, and they didn't get it, and all sorts of shit started happening with the election. It fell to the wayside. So it's kind of this tit for tat thing. Now, rumor has it that because Congress had approved the law, Trump can veto the veto of Biden. So I would anticipate on Monday or Tuesday that the repeal of SAB 121 will be removed, and U.S. banks next week will legally be able to hold Bitcoin. This is really important. It's more important than the strategic stockpile, than the strategic reserve. Because when banks can hold Bitcoin, on behalf of customers, it now fully integrates Bitcoin into the United States financial system. That means, now I'm not saying as a Bitcoiner you want to do it, but you could go to Bank of America, you could go to Chase Bank, you could go to Wells Fargo, deposit your Bitcoin, and they're going to pay you 3 or 4%, right? Now, I would never put my Bitcoin with Three Arrows Capital or Celsius or any of those other offshore exchanges. I would never do that with my Bitcoin, never. Now, would Chris possibly put some of his Bitcoin with Chase Bank in the United States? I would. I don't think Chase is going to rug pull my Bitcoin, right? Or Bank of America. Now I have my Bitcoin, and rather it, and this is really important, rather it being a dust collecting asset, it now creates yield. This is really important. Also, you'll be able to use it for collateral. Yeah, you can go to Ledden, and a few other companies are out there that allow you to borrow against your Bitcoin. They can for Americans, and some they can't, and everything else. Now you'll be able to put your Bitcoin on deposit and collateralize your Bitcoin at your local bank. Collateralization of Bitcoin and yield on Bitcoin will now be legal, and I would anticipate banking products in the next 12 to 18 months that'll allow you to do that with your Bitcoin. This is extraordinary. This gives velocity to Bitcoin. And the fact that it now drives velocity, which means use. This is far more important than any strategic stockpile. And I think people are really underestimating how important this is. And that'll happen day one. Trump can do that. So this is the most important thing that's going to happen in the next 24 hours. Now, I said a lot. Maybe you got some questions.
Chris, that's just extraordinary. Just thinking
really important stuff.
So one is not guaranteed, but he may. He may do this. But speculate. You say you will. Okay, fair enough. Then the other thing that I'm thinking about is the the Chevron deference decision by SCOTUS, which prohibits regulatory authorities making regulations and then punishing people for transcending those regulations.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Chevron deference, just to be clear, it's a good point, and thank you for bringing it up. That was probably the most significant turn of events or ruling for the Supreme Court. So, going back, just so people understand how important this is, going back to the authority of the executive branch to execute laws passed by Congress and this broad authority by which they do that. They can say, hey, you have to eat bananas on a Monday. That's the way they decide to interpret the law. Now, if you only want to eat bananas on Tuesday and you went to court to sue them, basically saying, I want to eat bananas on Tuesday, and they say Monday, they go in front of the court, and the court by law said, I have to give preference to the United States government as the authority on the law, and I have to give them more credence to their execution of the law than the other party. So typically when you go into court, it's 50-50. You got the plaintiff, you got the defendant, and they fight it 50-50. But in this case, the defendant in this case would be the government. They get more credence. They get they get 7 points out of 10, and the other guy starts out at 3. And so therefore you had a higher bar to overcome what they were doing. So basically the executive branch or departments of the US government always won court cases because the court had to say whatever they say is smarter than the guy that's fighting them and give them deference. Now it says, if you don't like the law, it's an even fist fight, gloves off, and you duke it out in court, and whoever has the better theory wins in court. So that's what Chevron deference is now you have a fair fight against the U.S. government for a law that you don't like.
Yeah,
just to be clear.
But I think also SCOTUS may have said, or it may be another ruling, or perhaps in the Chicago deference, that the regulatory authorities can't just create new laws. Because essentially these were regulations that had the force of law that hadn't been passed by Congress. But anyway, that's a moot point. What it's going to do, I mean, for me, where I'm particularly passionate about this is how the FDA was chasing the Amish, prosecuting the Amish for growing organic food, for allowing people to drink raw milk. I drink raw milk here in the UK, right? So, people can't choose whether they want to drink raw milk or not because the FDA doesn't like it, because they're supported by corporations. But anyway, moving on back to Bitcoin, the other thing that it does, that it could do what you're talking about, is it allows banks to have Bitcoin, this fabulous growing asset on their balance sheet, which then means the banks aren't insolvent. And then I think what it's further going to do is accelerate the drain of capital from the US, from the UK and the European Union. Because then the US is going to look like a safer bet, because the banks aren't going to be insolvent, than European and British banks. Because that process is already happening.
I with regards to SAB 121, it specifically had to do with the liability of customer deposits, right? It had nothing to do with the bank's balance sheet. The bank, I think, is already allowed to buy Bitcoin, but SAB 121 specifically had to do with customer deposits and the offsetting liability of such. So what you said may or may not be true. I don't know. But the point being is they couldn't accept customer deposits. But I think banks could hold Bitcoin already if they wanted. But maybe I don't know. But
You could be okay. But even then, Chris, it gives greater legitimacy and credibility to Bitcoin as a financial asset.
well,
Creates more demand in the market.
it is the final last hurdle is gone, and that'll be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, and then backward places like Keir Starlin's UK and the Soviet Union, the European Union, the Soviet European Union, they're going to lose out. It's looking really bad for us in the UK and the European Union.
You know, again, what's going to happen, I think, here in the United States is obviously that this SAB 121 is going to happen like on Monday or Tuesday. That's a given, right? David Sachs has basically said that's going to happen. The part of the first 100, he's got like 100 executive orders. Also, I believe he's also going to let Ross Ulbricht free as well. That's another one of the things he's going to do tomorrow, right? So a couple of things for Bitcoiners. And then he's got other stuff to worry about. Trump's got a lot of other shit on his plate with regards to the wars in Palestine and Ukraine and all these other things. But what will happen now is that we will get stablecoin legislation probably in a year because it's already in Congress and the Senate. They've already got 2 bills floating around. That will probably get wrapped up, and we'll probably have stablecoin legislation in the United States next, which actually the U.S. needs because we have to sell our junk bonds to the world, and the easiest way to do it is sell it through crypto tokenization, right? So that is really important. And then after you do that, then the SEC has got all these lawsuits against Ripple and everything else. The SEC is going to have to scrub all that and decide how they want to handle it because they just can't drop the lawsuit. It's kind of like they're kind of like sticky, right? They're in these lawsuits, like 120 or 170 lawsuits. So they're going to have to go through with Hester Peirce, the crypto mom, who's the head of the SEC. And now Scott Bassett is going to go in there as the new head, and he's going to tell her and work with others. They're going to put another Republican on probably as well and try to scrub these lawsuits, find out which ones are going to, let's say, let die to the wayside or put a stay on and get all that dirt and all that baggage from the Biden administration off their plate. And then after they do that, the next thing they'll start looking at is say, okay, what about token legislation? Let's put together laws, which basically Gessner never did. He only fought with a baseball bat. He provided no guidance, which is what they wanted because they wanted FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the crypto business. They didn't want to legitimize it. I mean, the other day I saw a great video, and I wish I could reference this guy's video. He was talking about, I think it was Rustin on Simply Bitcoin. It's one of his later ones. I love those guys. Talking about JP Diamond just came out. Jamie Dimon just came out again the other day on Chase and said that Bitcoin is for money launderers, theft, and ransomware, and it should be basically illegal. And then they brought up a list of all the fines that JP Morgan has paid over the years, which is like 150 fines at, I don't know, $20 billion, and the amount of money they paid versus the money they made. And he's out accusing Bitcoin of being used for money laundering, when I think JP Morgan has paid more, and Chase Bank paid more in fines than any other financial institution in the world. And Diamond, the head of the company, is telling that Bitcoin's the bad guy. I mean, the hypocrisy, as we all know, is enough to make you vomit. But what will happen next will be then legislation with regards to coins, utility coins, meme coins. Is it art? Is it not? And providing a framework for people to do business. But I think with regards to Mika, and specifically with the UK, because I visited you last year, Rich, and we talked about that in London over dinner about what's happening with the UK. And UK had a window for them because, pretty progressive in London with the, what's the name of your main street there where all the banks are in London? Not the Wharf. What do they call it?
The City of London?
The City of London, right? That's your Wall Street, right?
Yeah.
Very progressive with all your financial products and all that. And the UK just sat there with their finger up their ass, and they did nothing. They had like maybe a 1 or 2 year window to really grab hold of crypto, and they did nothing. And then the Europeans passed Mika, which now they're cracking down. Every single wallet has to be provided, information on who you send it to, and now Mika is showing its true colors. And so it looks like that's going to wipe out Bitcoin, wipe out crypto in Europe. UK's got nothing. The Middle East looks like they're doing quite well in Dubai and all that, right? And the UAE's doing pretty good. And now Trump said, and I'm going to take his word at it for now, since he has proven that he's got his, billions of dollars in crypto. He said, not your keys, not your coin. You'll always be able to have your own self-hosted wallet. Trump made that promise specifically that he would never take away the right to custody. So you'll have custody. Now, I don't know if that means it's going to have to be every wallet has to be declared or not. Again, the executive branch will determine how they want to execute this particular thing. But I think at this point in time, a year or two ago, I thought the United States would never step back. And I'd say now, given what's happening, that we're probably going to blow everybody else out of the water. And I wouldn't have said that,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, your hometown, they did nothing. The UK had a chance to grab it and they didn't. And the Mika's going to be absolutely horrible for Europe. And everybody's going to come back to the US and it's going to be us against the UAE.
Yeah.
That's
Chris,
the way I see it.
what you're talking about, it's so positive in the US for crypto, but I think also politically under Trump, I think also financially under Trump and economically, it's so positive. It's so, but on contrast, it's so dire in the UK and in the European Union. Just a few things just to add to you that you may not be aware of. So one of the things the European Union are doing is, and the UK, as well as developing CBDCs, the European Union has said that they want to register of people's. We're going to have to register at some point every single asset we have. Your Bitcoin, your gold, your priceless art, your classic car, your house, everything. Now, why on earth would the government want a register of every single wealth asset? So they can grab it or tax it in some way. Then I don't know if I told you about the chickens in the UK.
Chickens are valuable, very valuable.
We have to register our chickens as of October the 1st. Now, what's happened is people have flooded the website, by registering chickens, that their frozen chicken from the local supermarket, crashed the website, right? And if you don't register your chickens, £1,500 fine or 6 months in prison. You can end up in.
Well, this whole show. We could do a whole nother segment on free speech. Of course, I really appreciate and I watch all your political commentary because you've really been doing a lot of that lately. You got great guests like Tom Luongo and all the other guys you've been talking to for years, and I really like your political stuff. And what I watch that's going on in the UK with regards to free speech is mind blowing. But that's a whole. We could talk about that for hours, right? That's another subject. But
so they're going to clamp down. They're going to clamp down on people's liberty because, and I don't know if you've seen the latest with Tom Luongo and Alex Craner, because one of the things they talked about in Scott Bessent's confirmation hearing last week, and I've only seen this little clip. John Cornyn, who I think I said in the video, he's a Democratic senator. He's actually a Republican senator from Texas. He asked Scott Bessent, "What did you think of the proposal for the Bank of England to act as the clearinghouse for US Treasuries?" And Scott Bessent said, "I didn't know about this. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to look into this." Yeah. Because that would rob the US of financial sovereignty, and it gives an indication of how much the previous administration was captured by the globalists. That they'd give away America's financial sovereignty to the City of London. And that's going to change. That is going to change.
From a libertarian standpoint, I think, and actually talk about Scott Bessent, which is interesting. He's the first gay Secretary of the Treasury we've ever had. He's gay. And everybody says that Trump hates gays and Trump hates women.
Yeah, Trump is Orange Hitler, is he not?
Yeah, I know a little bit. It doesn't work for their narrative. And the point is that it proves, and this is all Americans want, nobody gives a shit who you sleep with. We don't care. We don't care. We don't care what color you are. We don't care religion. Can you do the damn job? That's all we care about. And this is what we're going to go back to. If everybody says Trump is radical, he's going to destroy, he's a Hitler, he's Nazi, he's not. That is a narrative. If you look at what he says and what he's done, if you look at his management teams, if you look at his businesses, he only wants if you could do the job. And you look at his cabinet with Christine Nome and Tulsi Gabbard and all the people he wants to bring in. These are strong women. Richard strong. He loves
Richard Brunel, who's also gay. And I completely agree with you on this, Chris, because I had this argument with my cousins. Being Pakistani, being Muslim, we're all interested as a group about what happens in Palestine. They were saying, listen, as soon as he's in power and stuff, you're going to have wars all over the place. Saying, no. And now what's happened, Orange Hitler, before he's come into power, has demanded of Bibi Netanyahu to sign a peace deal, which Bibi Netanyahu has been refusing to sign since December 2023. What kind of a lousy Hitler is this guy anyway? I know.
Again, it's off topic and we could talk about it forever. But the point is that the good news is about him is you really are going to get what he says. He's very effective at what he does. You may not like his style, but he gets the job done. He is for America, right? And
which
Being
is his job.
pro-America doesn't mean we're against Europe or against the UK or against Canada. Like Pierre Poilievre, the new conservative over in Canada, he is going to be a rock star for Canada. Trudeau is out. Trudeau is out of his mind. Poilievre is going to get in there. Pierre Poilievre, I think, as I say his name right, he's going to get in there. And it's great. I hope the same for the UK.
Well, we don't have anybody.
Just focusing on crypto, the United States is going to be the center of gravity starting literally tomorrow, and it's extraordinary. And like I said, it's going to be the repeal of SAB 121 is the most significant thing because now banks will be allowed to bring velocity to Bitcoin in our banking system. They'll clean up all the lawsuits. That's why Ripple up and everything's going up. That'll take a few months. We're going to get stablecoin legislation. And then after that, they're going to put together basically a framework for digital assets in the United States after that. And we may or may not ever buy Bitcoin on the open market. I don't think we ever will. The idea about Congress passing some law that allows us to buy Bitcoin on the open market, I just don't see it happening. I don't care if it happens because there's other things that are happening that are far more important. Right. If he makes a stockpile and he freezes what we got, hey, that's fantastic. He probably can do that if there's any left because we've got about 200,000 Bitcoin. And right now, the Biden administration is going to try to slide back about 100,000 to Bitfinex from that hack. So 100,000 of it's gone. And also the Marshal Department, which holds our Bitcoin, the U.S. Marshals, got the green light to sell 50,000 on the open market. So literally, we've got 150,000 Bitcoin that could literally be vaporized between now and tomorrow. Now, I don't know if the Biden administration is going to move that fast, which would only leave Trump about 50,000 to basically nationalize. Maybe they won't do it, and we're going to nationalize the other. I think 100 of it is going to go back to Bitfinex, and so we're probably looking at about 100,000 Bitcoin. Hey, better than nothing. Yep. But I don't personally see the Bitcoin strategic reserve happening. The strategic stockpile by executive order, he will do, but I don't think that's going to be announced tomorrow. But it probably will get done this year. So, but the strategic reserve is buying, and that requires a congressional, literally an act of Congress. So,
right, I was going to ask about that. Is it Senator Lummis who's put forward a bill for?
Lummis has put forward a bill, and also Tim Scott, right, the senator's the head of the House Banking Committee, who's a rock star. We got rid of that other communist, that Democrat. He's off. Tim Scott is now going to be the head of the Banking Committee in the Senate, and he's great. And so she'll put forward it, but remember, it's got to go through the House of Representatives, then it's got to go through Senate, then they have to combine the both bills, then it has to get voted, and then it's got to get signed. And remember, only 3 or 4% of our legislation ever makes it that far, and so the chances of it happening are 95% no and 5% yes. Okay, but I don't care. There's other things that are more. No,
important. There's plenty that's positive, right? Now, moving on. What do you see will be the ramifications of Trumpcoin plus the stockpile and SAB1 being reverted that for altcoins and the whole market as a whole globally?
Well, obviously all boats rise in a rising tide. So, and if you look at the 4-year Bitcoin pattern, which I think, by the way, is going to be dampened as Bitcoin becomes more ingrained in our financial fabric. I think you're going to see less of the 4-year pattern. But right, 2025, by all definition, should be a great year. I think it's going to do well with the tailwinds of the administration, and I think that all the altcoins and everything will go up in tandem. I think specifically in the short term, because the Trump coin is sucking all the liquidity out of everything. Doge is flat. Some of the other alts are kind of flat, and everybody's putting their money into the trade. It's how long is the Trump coin going to be hot? And that may take some, but over time, I think it's going to be a good year for everything. Honestly, and I would anticipate Bitcoin by the end of the year between 2 and 250. And then this doesn't talk about corporate adoption or nation state adoption, right? Mm-hmm. And what's going to happen with that. So if Trump coin nationalizes the Bitcoin we have with a strategic stockpile, then I think that would be the first step to legitimizing nation state adoption, and others will probably start looking at doing the same. And as in the United States, we have at least a dozen states now that are in Florida, my home state, has already got on board and has legislation in the Florida House of Representatives to have a Floridian-based Bitcoin stockpile for the Florida Treasury. Because remember, the United States, people don't realize it's not the United States of America, it's the United States of America, and each state runs like its own company, right? With the umbrella of the United States. And so every state has its own budget, they have their own surplus, they have their own taxation, and so they want to turn around and start buying Bitcoin. Probably will happen at the state level much faster than it would at the federal level, which is a little bit.
Because I imagine, sorry, Chris, in states like Florida and Texas, it'll pass real quick because of their libertarian ethos. I imagine. I'm assuming, right?
maybe, but it's interesting because the federal government can quote print money, but the states can't, right? And so the question is, where's the money going to come from? I would imagine it would just be a small fraction. I think what's even more interesting that's happened in the United States is state pension funds are already buying Bitcoin. Like Wisconsin, they've got like $150 million. And that was like 0.1% of the pension fund for the state employees. So pension funds are starting to buy, and I can see state pension funds and others buying Bitcoin. Whether or not the treasury of the state buys Bitcoin is something else, but hey, it doesn't hurt. And I think actually after one state actually gets it passed, then obviously it'll start a cascading effect when other states do it. Probably more symbolic than anything else. I mean, so the state of Florida, maybe our budget's, 20 billion a year or 30 billion. I don't even know, to be honest with you. And they buy, $10 million worth of Bitcoin or $50 million. I don't see them buying billions of dollars for the state treasury personally, but then again, I'm not an expert on those things. But symbolically, it certainly looks great. But states first, federal government second, probably.
And then you're going to have likely to provoke a national within the US a race between the other states when they see what's happening, and also internationally it could happen where you have nations competing with each other to get Bitcoin. I mean, was it Bhutan? How many billions of dollars they have? Tiny little country with virtually no industry, just farming, and they have billions in Bitcoin. Yeah, and they're mining Bitcoin. Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, it's exciting, right? It's. I don't think any of us recognize what's happening, and the question is the tipping point, right? When Bitcoin becomes literally it trades as a global asset class, but it's not integrated as one yet. And when you actually have states put a little bit of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and governments do it, and it's integrated into banking. And as a Bitcoiner, I don't want an all Bitcoin world. I know that's kind of a heretic from people, but the idea that Bitcoin, and you have to be practical, right? That Bitcoin is going to save the world and replace everything. It's not. It doesn't work that way. The ability to print and make money is probably the greatest drug on the world, and no government's going to give up that drug. There's no way that they're going to get rid of the Swiss franc, the UK pound, the US dollar. Bitcoin will live in parallel. We'll have countries printing money. You'll have Bitcoin will be out there. You'll have the dollar, the yen, the euro, the pound, whatever will be out there, and it'll all kind of work together some way. And I think the idea, I always tell people, I said, look, if nation states are buying Bitcoin, if you got countries like El Salvador buying Bitcoin, if you've got insurance companies like Mass Mutual in the United States buying Bitcoin, and you've got Fidelity and BlackRock and all these other companies buying Bitcoin, the largest financial companies in the world, maybe you should have Bitcoin on your balance sheet. Maybe, right? And that's the way I frame it. And I tell people as a Bitcoiner, my job is not to get you to buy it, it's to get you to understand it. And as you well know, Rich, Bitcoin is still not easy to understand, right? It's hundreds of hours of homework, right? So
absolutely, it's not quite ready. Yeah. But what you said got me thinking about what happens when there's a new technology that causes a paradigm shift, like with the Caxton press. Who could have thought that the printing press would have then produced what it then produced? Where reading, the availability of books for everybody, of printed literature is available. Who could have imagined the difference that the internet would have made? That you and I are having this conversation, even though we're separated by thousands of miles and we're talking live. Who would have thought that? Or the telephone. So similarly, how can you and I even begin to imagine, when we're on the cusp of this paradigm shifting technology, once again, what the world is going to be like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? We are in for a wild ride, Chris. And the thing about printing currencies and everything, no one's going to give that up. But one of the things that cryptocurrencies makes available is the emergence of other cryptocurrencies, like privacy coins, like Pirate Chain, but also local cryptocurrencies or cryptocurrencies that have utility in the way that Veriscoin does, or some of the other, many other, Sentinel, which with its decentralized VPN. So we are moving into this whole new technological world, which is going to lead to greater decentralization, and with that comes greater freedom.
Well, specifically, I think what's going to be fascinating to watch is going to be the ability of AI bots to have commerce between themselves, right? And that's what we were focusing on. One of our last projects was using Bitcoin Lightning, because essentially it's instantaneous with no fees, and the ability for software to conduct transactions without human interaction, right? and that you'll have bots that provide services, and bots will then have commerce between themselves, where you may have the banana bot talk to the apple bot to go ahead and buy fertilizer from the fertilizer bot, and then the water bot to buy water to water the apples and the fertilizer, and all the bots are now trading Bitcoin on Bitcoin Lightning micropayments for 4 or 5 sats for a drip of water, or 3 or 4 sats for some nitrogen for the banana plant or something like that. And you have this integration now of intelligence with the ability to spend and turn around and saying, hey, I need to buy water for my banana plant, and it starts shopping for cheap water instantaneously. It finds the cheapest water, closes the transaction with sats, the water gets dropped off on the plant. And all this happening, I think, is going to be extraordinary. And one of the things that we're trying to focus on at BitSeeker is saying, hey, where could we find a particular vertical market where we could play in that and provide a solution providing water only to banana plants? I know that's kind of a dumb idea, but it makes the point. And matter of fact, I have that one customer, as we talked about, I met with last time in the UK, and they're in the financial services industry, of being able to provide microtransactions for financial services, right? Where his trading bot interfaces with the customer, does the trades, and gets paid a fraction of a sat based on the trades in real time versus subscription model, right? Being able to literally pay by the drink, but for sats at a time. But the AI bot kind of thing, I think, is going to be fascinating, and this automation of commerce and the ability for bots to spend, right? And this is the next frontier as far as I'm concerned. It's going to be extraordinary, stuff we can't even imagine.
That is wild. I've not even got into the world of AI. Maybe that's a conversation for a future video. But Chris, anything else you want to say before we finish up?
It's great to see you again. We got to do this more often. I will be back on my European tour this summer, so hopefully I'll swing through London, if not sooner. I may be there in March for this particular customer that we're dealing with over in London. We'll see. I'll let you have to know on that. But it's great to chat. And let's see, we have to cover free speech. We have to cover libertarian views. We have to cover UK politics. We have to cover US politics. We got a lot of things to talk about.
Oh my God. Well, listen, thank you so much. And I'll have the links so people can find you and follow you. Definitely follow you on X. And bright orange days ahead for crypto holders like you and I. And I invite people to go and find out about Bitcoin. And between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with crypto profit and freedom. Crypto Rich and Crypto Chris signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.
See ya.